Hello, my friends. So, yesterday I shared with you a book called An Egg is Quiet, and I drew a picture of one of my favorite animals that lays eggs. Turtles lay eggs and hatch from eggs. Today I'm going to read you a book about one of my other favorite animals that also hatch from eggs, which are frogs. We talked a little bit about amphibians and how they need to live close to water because they breathe through their skin and they need to be able to be in a damp place for them to be able to breathe properly. This is a great book that's going to tell us some fun facts and scientific information about frogs and why they need to be wet. So, Why Are Frogs Wet by Judy Hawes. A bunch of frogs on lily pads. Frogs were here on Earth before people. They were here before monkeys, before cats. Frogs were here before giraffes. Frogs have been here on Earth for millions of years. Long before there were frogs, there were fish. The fish breathe through their gills. After a long time, new kinds of fish appeared. These new fish had lungs for breathing. They could live out of the water for a while. When their ponds dried up, they were able to flop about on land. They had to flop because they had no legs. This looks almost like an iguana or a reptile of some kind. Later, some kinds of fish appeared that had legs in place of fins. Now they could move on the land or in the water. These were the forefathers, or the earliest form of frogs. So frogs started out as fish. They started out with just flippers, just like a fish. But eventually, they evolved to develop legs and feet, just like humans have. Not just like humans have, but similar. A frog can live in the water and on the land. It is called an amphibian. Amphibian is a word that means to have a double life. So not only do they live in water, but they also live on land. So double means two. Two lives. The frog has wet skin. The wet skin holds the secret of its double life. The frog breathes through its skin. It also breathes through its lungs. So humans, we can't breathe underwater. We need to be above water to be able to breathe, but we do have lungs. So we're similar to frogs because we both have lungs inside of our body that help us breathe. But frogs, they need to live inside the water and outside the water. Underwater, a frog breathes through its skin. It gets air from the water. There's oxygen in water. On land, a frog breathes through its lungs and its skin. It can breathe through its skin only when the skin is wet. It cannot get enough air through its lungs alone. If their skin dries out, the frog cannot breathe. That would mean the frog would die. So this is a picture of a northern leopard frog jumping into the water. Humans are not the same way. We can only breathe on land. We only breathe through our lungs. But frogs need to stay wet so that they can get enough oxygen into their bodies. A frog's skin is always fresh. It sheds its skin often, which is kind of like a snake. Snakes always are shedding their skin. New wet skin has already grown underneath the old skin. The frog eats its own old skin. That's a European common frog. In the fall and winter, frogs dig into the mud under streams and ponds. They stay there for months and months, all through the winter. They hardly breathe and their hearts slow down. They hibernate, just like many of the other animals we learned about. The garter snake, the bear. What else? We learned about so many different animals that hibernate this year. As soon as frogs come out in the springtime, this time of year, they hunt for a partner, a mate. That's a carpenter frog right there. Some kinds of frogs live all of their lives in water. Others live in damp woods or marshland. All frogs return to lakes, ponds, or puddles so that they can lay their eggs. They need to lay their eggs in the water or close by to the water. Male frogs fertilize the eggs. A clump of eggs looks like a large helping of tapioca pudding. I'm going to stop for a moment. Have you ever had bubble tea? The little bubbles inside bubble tea, which are tapioca pods, they look just like frog eggs. They're gooey, and they're small, and they look like they have almost like a little eyeball inside of them. Frog eggs are gooey. We were talking yesterday about the textures of different eggs. The eggs hatch in 4 to 21 days, so almost a full month. 4 to 21 days. Just 4 days is a week. 21 days is more like a month. Frog babies just hatched are called tadpoles. You can see a picture of the tadpoles here. Tadpoles have a very distinct head, and then they have a tail that helps them to swim around. They breathe through gills just like fish, and they actually look a lot like fish too. The gills look like fingers on either side of the tadpole's head. After a few days, the gills are covered over with skin. Then you can see hind legs growing. This is the froglet growing. Next, the front legs appear. The tail is slowly taken into the body. I want to first show you before we go on to the tail being taken into the body. If you look at these pictures here, these are froglets. I'm going to share some pictures with you that I have from Heartland Forest of some of the really cool froglets that I've seen in my life. That's the stage in between, the life stage between being a tadpole and being a frog, where the frog still has its tail, but it does not yet have its front legs. It just has its back legs. The tail is slowly taken into the body. Lungs for breathing on land grow inside the frog, so now it's ready to leave the water. The little frog has become an amphibian. It can live on land or water. So here, this is a beautiful picture. You can see from egg to tadpole to froglet. Then it begins to grow its front feet, loses its tail, and it becomes a full-grown frog. There are more than 2,000 kinds of frogs. They are found all over the world. All of them have wet skin. Many frogs are green or brown, but there are frogs of almost every color. Look, here we have blue, light blue, green, yellow, red, brown, a striped frog. And they live on every continent, every part of the world except for Antarctica. Antarctica is at the bottom of the world where penguins live, so it's very cold. But in every other place, Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, North America, all of those continents, there are frogs. Frogs were some of the first creatures on Earth to have voices, just like we do, humans. They use them when they are hunting for mates, looking for friends in the spring. When a frog sings, its throat looks like a blown up balloon. The voices of bullfrogs are deep and low. Tree frogs have a high-pitched song. It rings like distant bells. Other frogs call grunts, squeaks, or squawks. Most female frogs do not sing, but they scream when they are frightened. But you can see the frogs' necks blow up like balloons when they're singing, or squawking, or squeaking. Frogs are great jumpers. They can leap 10, 20, or 30 times their body length. So if a frog was this big, it could either jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that long, or double that, or even some can jump triple that length. So either, if it's this big, 10 jumps, 20 jumps, or 30 jumps the size of their own body. I know I can't jump as far as my own body. I can jump maybe halfway as tall as I am, but not my full height. Definitely not. The frog jumps to get away from predators. Sometimes it jumps to catch food. Here we can see a frog jumping to get away from a predator. When it looks for food, the frog does not jump carelessly. It waits, motionless, for insects to fly within striking distance. It may sit on a branch, a lily pad, a rock, or it may float on the water. Its big, bulging eyes can see in all directions. Frogs stare without blinking. They can protect their eyes from drying by shutting them halfway. They can still see because they can look through their lower eyelids. Very cool. Imagine if you could blink your eyes and still see. Does that mean even when you're sleeping that you'd be able to see? Frogs will eat anything that seems to be a living, moving insect. If the insect stops moving, the frog will pay no attention to it. That must be a way that insects protect themselves from frogs, by being motionless, staying still like a statue. If the insect stops moving, the frog will pay no attention to it. Frogs will starve before they would eat a dead bug. When frogs' eyes staring at a victim within striking distance, the frog's tongue makes the catch. I've noticed frogs go. They must be catching their prey, the insects that they want to eat. A frog's tongue is different from a human's tongue. It is attached to the front of its mouth, and it folds towards its throat, so back inside its throat. Ours sticks outward, theirs sticks back into its throat. As a frog jumps for an insect, its tongue flips forward. The far end of the tongue has a sticky surface that must help them catch their prey. This sticky end wraps around the insect. The insect sticks to the tongue, and the tongue swings back into the frog's mouth. The frog throws the insect down its throat. All of this takes less than 1/10 of a second. Wow. 1 second is just like boop. So even less than that would be 1/10 of a second. Frogs catch insects that are in water, in the air, or on land. They come out to find food at twilight or on rainy and cloudy days. During the heat of the day, they hide under damp leaves or under the water. They have to keep their skin wet because they're amphibians. Because remember, it's hard for them to breathe just through their lungs. Never forget that frogs are amphibians. They can live in water or on land, but only as long as their skin stays wet. And that's the end of our story. So, my friends, there are lots of fun facts about frogs in this book. If you want to write about one of them in your writer's workshop, that would be fantastic. I'm thinking about the fact that they need to live in water. They have 4 cycles of life. They start as an egg, then they grow to a tadpole, then they become a froglet, then they become a frog. Also, the fact that when they're singing, their throats bulge out like a balloon. There's all kinds of cool facts about frogs, and I hope that you enjoyed this book and that you might be able to share one thing that you liked learning about frogs from reading this book. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.